rain had stopped only minutes before, leaving the air thick with the heavy scent of wet earth and broken things. The city park was nearly empty, its playground glistening under a weak, gray sun. And on a worn wooden bench beneath an old oak, a man in an expensive navy suit sat with his elbows braced against his knees, his face buried in trembling hands. His name was Mark Ellison, one of the youngest CEOs in the country, a man used to commanding rooms full of people and decisions worth millions. Yet right now, he couldn't command his own heartbeat. It hammered painfully inside him, reminding him of everything he had failed to hold together, his company slipping from his grasp, his marriage dissolved, and the recent passing of the father he never had the courage to reconcile with. On that cold afternoon in Chicago, Mark felt as if he had lost every anchor he'd ever pretended to have. He didn't hear the approaching footsteps. He didn't see the small shadow stop in front of him. He only lifted his head when a tiny voice spoke, soft but steady, filled with a kind of innocence that pierced straight through the storm inside him. And that voice said, "Don't cry, mister, you can borrow my mom." Before we go deeper, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of compassion, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. It truly helps the stories reach more hearts. Mark blinked at the child standing before him, a little boy around 7 or 8, sandy blonde hair flattened from the rain, holding a soccer ball tucked against his side. He seemed too small for such a large gesture, too unafraid of a grown stranger's grief. And yet there he stood, offering comfort without hesitation. Something inside Mark cracked, not painfully this time, but gently, like the first split of dawn against a dark horizon. The boy, whose name he later learned was Caleb, pointed toward a woman nearby packing snacks into a worn canvas tote bag. She was smiling faintly as she watched her son, unaware of the moment unfolding. Mark wiped his face, embarrassed by his breakdown, but Caleb didn't look at him with pity, only concern, as if sadness was something he understood better than a child should. As the minutes passed, Caleb sat beside him on the bench, swinging his short legs back and forth, talking about simple things, his favorite superhero, the stray cat that lived behind their apartment building, the lemonade stand he wanted to open one day. His innocent chatter softened the emotional weight pressing on Mark's shoulders. When Caleb's mother, Grace, approached, apologizing for her son's boldness, Mark shook his head. He found himself thanking her instead. Something about her presence, gentle, grounded, humble, brought a warmth that felt foreign to his chaotic life. Her smile wasn't forced. Her eyes weren't calculating. She was the kind of person who seemed to carry quiet strength without even knowing it. Over the following weeks, Mark found himself returning to that park, drawn back by something he couldn't fully explain. Sometimes Caleb would be there, running across the grass or practicing dribbling his soccer ball. Grace often sat on the same bench, grading school papers. She was a 6th-grade teacher at a nearby public school, working long hours but never losing her patience or her calm. Each time Mark visited, the three of them ended up talking. Mark found himself opening up in small pieces, first about work stress, then about his divorce, and eventually about the regrets he carried from never repairing the fractured relationship with his father before he passed. Grace listened without judgment, offering perspective he didn't know he needed, insights that were kind but firm. Caleb added his own input in ways only a child could, telling Mark that grown-ups make life too complicated. Slowly, the park became the one place where Mark could breathe. And little by little, he became someone different, not the CEO drowning in pressure, but a man rediscovering quiet joys he had long abandoned. It wasn't sudden or dramatic. It wasn't a miracle that fixed everything overnight. But it was healing, steady and real. One chilly Saturday morning, Mark arrived to find the park unusually quiet. Only Grace sat on the bench, her shoulders tense and her usually calm face shadowed with worry. Caleb wasn't with her. When Mark asked where he was, her voice wavered as she explained that Caleb had been admitted to the hospital the night before. He had collapsed while playing, and the doctors were running tests. They suspected something serious, a heart condition Grace had never known about. For the first time since meeting her, Mark saw fear break through her composed demeanor. Without thinking, without hesitation, Mark drove her to the hospital. The sterile halls, the beeping monitors, the lingering cold of disinfectant, it all felt too real, too heavy. Caleb, hooked up to machines far too large for his small frame, still managed to smile when they walked in. He told Mark not to look so scared, that he would be running again soon. But the doctors weren't so optimistic. They spoke of surgeries, risks, costs that Grace could never afford on her modest salary. She tried to stay strong for her son, but the cracks were visible. That night, when Grace stepped outside the hospital room to compose herself, Mark followed. The weight of her world was crushing her, and he felt a fierce, protective urge rise within him, something he hadn't felt for anyone in years. She confessed that she didn't know how she would manage the bills, that she was terrified of losing her son, the only family she truly had. Tears she rarely allowed to fall spilled down her cheeks. Mark didn't hesitate. He promised her he would take care of everything, the surgeries, the treatments, the appointments. She resisted at first, insisting she couldn't accept that kind of help. But Mark told her that Caleb had saved him first. A little boy's kindness had pulled him out of darkness. This was the least he could do. The surgery was scheduled quickly. The waiting felt endless. Mark stayed with Grace the entire time, holding on to hope with trembling hands. And when the doctor finally emerged with a tired smile, telling them that the operation went well and Caleb would recover, Grace collapsed into Mark's arms with relief. It was in that moment, amid tears and gratitude and overwhelming relief, that something changed between them, something tender and undeniable. Healing didn't happen all at once. Caleb's recovery was slow, but he grew stronger with each passing week. Mark visited him daily, sometimes bringing silly gifts, sometimes just sitting and listening to the boy talk about all the things he wanted to do once he was allowed to run again. Grace watched these moments with a heart full of gratitude and something deeper she tried not to name just yet. Months later, as spring breathed warmth back into the city, the three of them returned to the same park where everything began. Caleb, cleared by his doctors, kicked his soccer ball across the grass with more determination than ever. Grace sat beside Mark on the bench, the breeze gently lifting strands of her hair. The world felt different, brighter, softer, fuller. Mark had regained control of his company with a new mindset and healthier boundaries. He repaired relationships he'd long neglected. He found meaning outside of work, a life he never realized he was missing until a small boy taught him that it was okay to need people. As they watched Caleb chase the ball, Grace quietly thanked Mark again, but he shook his head. He told her that her son saved him before he ever saved her son. And she understood what he meant. Sometimes healing came from the most unexpected places, like a child offering his mother to a stranger crying on a park bench. Life didn't magically become perfect, but it became real. And real was enough. Real was beautiful.